All right, peace and much love. Zin Uru here. Welcome to the latest installment of Message from the Minista. This week's Message from the Minista is part one of a three-part series, and this one is called Be at One with Yourself. Part one is called Be at One with Yourself. And I feel like it's going to be a good one because of just all these little distractions while I was getting set up tonight and getting ready. I had this like laser sharp focus, and then all of a sudden, so it's great. I love it. I always know that's the spirit, or it's the test, or it's whatever, this morphogenetic field matrix of matter that we breathe in our consciousness in. And that gives you a little clue on what we're talking about tonight, being at one with ourself. And of course, we're using SELF, the acronym SELF, Source, Energy, Life, Force. A big up to Minister G. Simone, the acronologist, and big up to the teacher, KRS-One. SELF, Source, Energy, Life, Force. That's an acronym that they put out, and it's just such an amazing, just so much truth, and just can be seen in one acronym. And this is part of our hip hop site, right? Is like, and Minister Simone is so amazing at this because she's able to take a word and then expand the word, like source, energy, life, force, self. And this is what an acronym does in general. You take a word and then you give it a deeper meaning. And then when you memorize that meaning, every time you see that word, that acronym, the depth of the acronym is brought to the site. So where somebody who doesn't have that acronym in their mind sees the word self, it's just their interpretation of what self means. And those of us with the acronym source, energy, life, force, we go, yo, wait a minute. So when I'm talking about self, I'm talking about a source, energy, life, force. Where's that source? Where's that energy? What is that life? What is that force? Yo. And it's all of it. It's all of that and then some, and more of that after that, and more of that for eternity, right? So I want to welcome y'all here. And this week we're going to be reading from the seventh overstanding in the Gospel of Hip Hop, written by the teacher, called The Seventh Sense. And this three-part series is just I'm breaking down the seventh sense into three different lessons. It's just to go a little bit deeper into that and base it off of just like our life experience. You know, that I want to talk about the life experience of source, energy, life, force, or walking around in the seventh sense. Having matter and energy and events and all of these things be in harmony with life in that way. You know, and I know this because I used to work against life. I used to not be in harmony with life. And keep in mind, even when we're working against life, if we're on that spiritual path, even if we're working against life and what God's asking us to do or showing us, even when we're working against that, like we're still working towards that ultimate purpose that sooner or later is going to have to reveal itself, whether it's way too late to really live it out or whether it's just right on time. And really, I'm speaking to those of us who see it and say, yo, let's just have it be right on time. Allow my timing, my syncopation, my rhythm to be in harmony with rhythmic harmony with God, with creation. And so with that being said, we got to be like, yeah, okay. So now I want to be in alignment with God. Well, who is God? What is God? Why is God? Where is God? How is God? All these questions start coming up. And we say, we're breathing in this air and we talk about spirituality, then it's like, what is the spirit? We say something like purpose. Well, then what is my purpose? Are there these many purposes? And all of a sudden, this just say something basic spiritually. And those, this, when you start asking these questions, you get more questions. You just got boom, boom, more questions and more ideas and more philosophies and this guy over there got an opinion and she got opinions and they got opinions and this has an opinion and way back in history they had this opinion and way over there they got this opinion and you hear it and you're like, yo, man, okay, which do I choose from? And this is where the seventh sense, or this is where, let's talk about the hip hop site. Hip hop is consciousness, capital H, lowercase I, lowercase p, lowercase o, h, lowercase o, lowercase p. Hip hop, one word is consciousness. This is where that site comes in, because there's a certain sight, and we talked about this leading up to this message from the minister about, the feeling. A couple of weeks ago we talked about the soul, the seat of the soul, and the solar plexus, and the way our solar plexus receives information and feels energy, especially from other people. And so while we're navigating through all of this information, navigating through all of this, we're using our sight. Oh, the soul is part of the sight. The feeling is the sight as well as the eyesight, especially when we're in this matter. We're going to read about matter in a little bit, this stuff, and air. But we take that sight and we can look then at the options, all these different ideas of them, they, they're coming at us. And we can use that sight to then begin really honing in or focusing in on what it is that's meant for us, the sight that's for us in our environment. So, imagine this. Imagine that there's a sign for you on the right-hand side of the road, okay? And you're supposed to look at that billboard at that moment at the right-hand side of the road. But you're distracted by the Hennessy commercial on that side of the road. And so you're praying, God, I just need a sign. I need a sign. And you're driving along and you're about to go and then you see the Hennessy. Oh shit. And you start thinking about the Henny and the taste and the sipping and all of that. And you miss that sign over there. That sign that was going to be a clear sign that said, follow your path, or, Nissan Pathfinder. And you're like, Pathfinder? Oh, I need to seek my Pathfinder. This is very intricate because this environment is talking to us. And although a lot of it is manipulation by the media and manipulation by, the control grid and the matrix and the colonizer and all of that system, never forget that, God's matrix, God's crystallographic matrix, the morphogenetic field, whatever we want to, like God supersedes that. God supersedes all that. So God can intervene at any moment and at any time. And this is where things like discipline comes in, because, we want to have our physical body discipline. When we're asking God to show us the signs, we don't want to be tempted by the alcohol. And I'm just using that as one example. It could be the Burger King. It could be the Taco Bell. It could be a pair of jeans. It could be fragrance. It could be a number of things up on that billboard that's going to divert your attention, just momentarily can divert our attention away from the message that God had for us at that moment onto that. And then we get back and we're driving along, we're like, and we start looking for the signs and we're like, I don't know, is that a sign? Is that a sign? Is that a sign? Well, you missed the sign over there, okay? And it's happened to me, I know it. I know it. Because why? Because we're all given this opportunity to, overcome the temptations of the world as spirit beings. This is where the depth of this lesson is really for the spirit being. We're overcoming the temptations of the world and having a certain sight that can hone in on the signs that are actually meant for us when they're there, and then be able to move along, because a sign may say, Hippopia 30 miles away. Okay, Hippopia is everywhere, but just in this example, the actual physical city, Hippopia 30 miles away. And you might see that sign, and then for the next 25 miles, you don't see another sign. Okay? But you're going by that sign, you're following the road, you're following the instructions. We follow the instructions of the sign, and it may not be another one. So it's only when we're lost that we're having to look for signs everywhere. That means we're lost. And we get lost. Being lost is part of it too. But as we're, mastering this, you don't want to be getting lost. Like it's okay to get lost the first couple of times you travel the United States, but it ain't. After that, you can't really be getting lost no more. You got to learn the lessons from being lost, and then to learn the path is to follow the signs, and God gives those signs very clearly. I recognize there are 4 or 5 major events before I met the teacher. That were pulling me and drawing me out of the matrix that I was in, and my family out of the matrix that we were in at the time, which was just working all the time and just nonstop, you know what it is. So I had these opportunities that would present themselves, and I would feel them. And then whatever, fear would take over, excuses would take over, doubt would take over, all of that would take over, and I'd miss those opportunities. And I knew they were missed opportunities because I still remember them, okay? But I do know that I did not like that feeling I had when I knew I missed a golden opportunity that wasn't coming again. I didn't like that feeling afterwards. That's the part I couldn't get addicted to, that feeling that just oh man, I fucked up, oh shit. What I learned from this lesson. So this is God's prepping. This is why it's all, this is how God lines it up in its perfection, is that when I met Teacher, I did not want to have that feeling after I got invited to go out on tour the first time. Now, I could have come up with thousands. Other people came up with I had a whole host of people making excuses why I shouldn't go. Doubt, fear, phone calls, people I hadn't even heard from in a while just calling me up. What's going on? Everybody's worried about you. What? And I'm like, yo, I'm good. Just trust me. I'll catch up with you in a minute. And I did. I caught up with everybody in a minute, or they caught up with me. But it was I knew that feeling of missed opportunity. And I knew how sometimes certain opportunities, like when you miss them, like a major life opportunity, another one didn't come around for another couple years, you feel me? Like another couple years. And they come faster when you vibrate faster in spirit. But back then, I knew. So when that opportunity with the Teacher came up, I was like, yo, I'm not going to have that feeling inside no more. I'm not going to miss out on this opportunity that is clearly from God, because it's happened in a supernatural way beyond anything I could have imagined. Okay, this is just something I didn't even imagine or think possible, and it just happened. Now I participated. I heard about the event, showed up at the event, said yes. We are active participants in this. But there's a site that is ours as the active participant in this. There's a site that feels and sees and knows. And I would say this, my nobility, we all know exactly what that site is. We all know exactly what that feeling is. We know it so well because it's our true nature. It's who we are. And everything else is just denial of that core truth. But because of the way we've been conditioned and trained and domesticated by that shitstorm over there, we interpret it as that doesn't exist. I need to go outside myself for truth. I need to go outside myself to find all the answers. I need to go outside myself and ask out. But at the whole time, we actually are just born with this knowing and this being and this feeling. And I'm just saying, when we start with that sight, with the hip hop is consciousness. When we start with that sight, when we start with that self, when we start with that inner knowing, that inner man, that inner woman, that inner sight, when we just start there, nothing else matters. But what's in here. So don't be afraid of it, because you might hear, oh, nothing else matters. That means you just don't care anymore, man. And no, that's the lie. That's the lie. You care more about other people, about your environment, about yourself, about character, about heritage, about culture, about art, about the elements, about God, about creation, about earth. All of it. And when we care about something and have interest in it, like the universe, God, nature, we get more of it. When we really resonate internally with something like love, we receive more of it. When we really resonate with something like truth, we receive more of it. We experience it more. Now, be mindful. Be mindful, because this is where God's grace comes in. You know, we grow. Heaven is a place we grow to. Heaven is not a place we go to, as Edgar Casey says. It's a place we grow to. So there's no need to rush in this. There's no need to try and, I got to speed up and speed up and speed up again. There's no need to do all that. I mean, and if you got to do that as part of your growth, sometimes that's part of the growth too. So, but what I'm saying is that there's no need to worry here in this space. There's no need for it. Why? Because this is just being at one with self. And I recognize that there's a lot of the Barnes & Noble spirituality of being at one with self, but like it's so obvious. It's what it is. And being at one with self is being at one with nature and realizing that God is everything. But it's very interesting, because when you come into that wholeness, that state of wholeness, and you appreciate life more, then you really look at those things that hurt and destroy life as problems that require an actual solution. You know? You don't make excuses for the sins of the world, or for the debauchery of the world, or for the ugliness of the world, or for the sickness, hatred, ignorance, and poverty, and the brutality. Like when you come into that wholeness of knowing that that's part of the wholeness, the empowerment that comes is like, yo, I see that for what it is, and we need a solution to that. I'm not going to sit there in any kind of spiritual denial of those things. But when I tune into my wholeness, I also tune into my awareness that like, yo, that's wrong. Or, yo, that's right. You know? And this is the school here. This is the class in session here. This is what God's putting us in here in earth for. That's what we're in earth right now, for that reason. For the illusion of duality. Now, most people think, and this is a fallacy of thought. It's illogical. It hasn't been thought all the way through. Oh, so if good and evil are an illusion, or right and wrong are an illusion, then everything's okay. Do what thou wilt. I'm good. I'm done. Everything's okay. No. As we said a couple weeks ago, that's not how it works. And when I say no, I mean K-N-O-W. No. Know this. This is how it works. There's only good and right. There is the illusion of evil here in this dimension. And we're experiencing it in such a profound way that we want to say, I have no part of that. I want no part of that. And when we're embracing our wholeness, we're embracing that truth, that sovereignty, that nature, that being, that love, that protection for creation and God's creation. When we embrace that, we say, yo, yeah, let's do what is right, even in the face of wrong. Let's do what is right. So the idea that do what thou wilt and you can just go along and everything is all things and God is everything, so I can do whatever I want. That's the trap. That's the failure. And even though it will equate to so-called worldly success, that's just success in that level of their simulation, that level of their matrix. And what I mean by simulation and matrix is this, because I want to take this a little bit deeper now, because we're going to talk about really where we're at here in 2022. And those in the future, those in the future who are hearing this message from the Minista, who are looking back on 2022, will be experiencing kind of like phase 3 of their simulation in a different way than we're experiencing it now, or that I will ever experience it. So we're talking about because we want to get to who and what we are, our self, our true self. We should be aware of who and what we're not, the false idea, the false nature, the husk, or the corn. And of course, at one time, maybe the corn was the husk, and maybe the husk was protecting the corn. But to finally eat that juicy corn, the husk has to dry off. It has to, come away, it has to be pulled apart. And then that corn says, oh, I am the beautiful shining corn within. I'm the golden corn. So on that husk, those layers, this week I've been thinking about the simulation that we live in. And want to kind of, in my own philosophy, articulation, kind of working this out, give some definition to that. And what I've really realized is I was inspired by the movie Inception. I haven't watched it for years, but it's a profound movie. And there's a part where they want to plant an idea in somebody's subconscious mind so deeply that person believes that it's an original idea. And so by doing so, they put the guy under hypnosis and put him to sleep. So he goes to sleep. And then they hook themselves up neurologically to this dude. It's weird. And enter into his dream. And he doesn't realize he's dreaming. But they've got to get down to this third layer, this bottom layer of the subconscious to plant an idea. They're planting their idea into his mind. But so then when he wakes up from these other levels of consciousness, he believes that the idea that they planted in his mind is an original idea because all those layers of the subconscious receive it as an original idea. Somebody thought of this already. This is known how to do this through hypnosis, psychology, certain pharmaceuticals. That movie, although it's hyperbole, although it's fantasy, although that's not how it really happens, it's talking about it's symbolic of a real phenomenon. And so here we are, let's return right now for a moment. We'll just go to our crystallographic nature of, the God being, the God force. And from this vantage point, let's look at, in this world, where this world, not the earth, but the world that we live in, there's level 1 of the simulated reality they create is the learning institutions, the religious institutions, the books you can buy and read, what you get taught in school, the philosophies, what you can buy, what you can't buy, what you can grow, what you can't grow, where you can go, what you can't go, where you can't go, what you can drive, what you can't drive, like the physical matter world, money exchange, There's that level of the simulation. And that's the oldest level of the simulation. And all it would take to break out of that level of simulation is a real philosophy or just a real divine spark of God or a, divine revelation. So the second layer of that, and I would include too radio and television in that as well. But because it's consciousness and there's not really levels, it's just densities. As it starts getting denser, cars down to television and radio, and now we're dealing with waves, radio waves and television waves, and then you're getting into the digital world, okay? Now, that's the first level of the simulation. The second level of the simulation then becomes, and this is just theirs. This is just what they've created. There's other things going on here, okay, that even gave them the ability to do this. We're not getting there. We've got the world of, philosophies and their religions and their institutions, and their cars and where you can go and where you can't go and down to television. Then it starts bleeding into the second layer of the simulated reality they're creating, the digital world, the internet. And in the internet, I'm talking about specifically with handheld devices. The new God. I got a song called Metahuman coming out, talking about the new God. Is Mutabaraku speaking about the new God and being the cell phone, this little rectangular shaped device, okay? And the computer screen, what you're watching this on. This is part of their simulated reality and the social media network. So see, it kind of bled from the media networks on television down to the digital networks on social media. And AI is getting involved in this as well, okay? And then this is actually now almost superseding, okay, because the way consciousness works, this level now is superseding nature and cars, because cars are very much less mechanical. That's why they don't feel the same as they used to and are becoming more digital. You know, we're entering into cars that are both mechanical and digital, you know, and to where the cars are becoming more and more digital and less mechanical, like with the newer Teslas and the Lucid and all those. So you can see that these levels of consciousness affect each other as we enter more into them. People are more and more dependent on devices. I talked earlier about going on tour and leaving the house and getting lost, and I had to be able to read a map. I had to be able to read road maps. And I'm great at reading a road map. Get the good road map book and you just read. Come on, shoot, come on, don't do that. Missy. Yeah. You read the road map book and, you know, you go through the roads like that. And then now we got navigation systems to where, you know, we don't even know how we got somewhere because we were just watching the screen the whole time. Don't even know where we're really at, north, east, west, south, because we've just looked at a little screen and arrived somewhere. So it's very important to realize that this is literally shifting the way we see the world. And this is why hip hop, the site, is so important, because it's going to give us the ability to navigate through these other environments, you know. Now, the third one that's being implemented right now, and I don't know how far it's going to go. I don't know. I mean, but the third level of this boom, the simulation is the actual simulation of artificial reality, virtual so-called reality. There's no reality there. The metaverse, you know, what they're creating for that, where people are going to be just plugged in like, you know, like the Matrix or something like that. And that's what's happening now in our actual lives in 2022. Those simulated realities are affecting the consciousness of those who are stuck in the consciousness of those simulated realities. And we were born into those simulated realities, so there's no shame in being stuck in them. There's no judgment being stuck in them. There's none of it. Like, God stuck us here for a reason, okay? So let that just be the ultimate empowerment right here. Like, God stuck us in the middle of this matrix for a reason and a purpose. There. Now I'm empowered. Now that I'm empowered right off the bat, beginning with the centaur, beginning with the soul force, beginning with that soul fire, beginning with that persona, that sound, sonar, sound, begin with that, then look at those three levels now. See what I'm saying? And I don't know, I know, like, even myself, my sight shifted from being like, yo, we live in these three realities. So like, but who are we in these three realities? Yo, God put us into this existence for a reason. So I can do something like this. You know, we can put out the music into the industry. We can put out the light of God. We can be what God, the crystallographic matrix of God, the perfection of God that allows all these other fake simulations to exist, the true and living mind and breath of the Creator, of great Spirit God, of all that is, of the great event, that supersedes everything else. And that when that supersedes, that becomes a benefactor like Jesus Christ. You know, that becomes like a benefactor, like a miracle. And then we realize that that supersedes and gives us the signs that we need to see when we need to see them. But we have to have ourselves disciplined to the point where we can see the signs and we know how to read the map. Okay? We know how to read the map. When we know how to read the map, this doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. We're aware of it, but God supersedes it. God is sovereign over all of that. God's allowing it. We know God's allowing it because they cannot steal our soul. We have to give it with permission. Even, now check it out, go back for a moment, even if it's like inception and that permission was implanted. So we thought that it was an original idea as it goes up through those levels. See, so this is where the great deception is on their behalf. They want to subconsciously plant certain ideas down there at the metaverse level that will go all the way up into the cars and houses and finances and institution level. It's where those who are in this level and, when we're walking around the material world, we actually think we're having an original idea, but it's not an original idea because it was planted there. Now feel that for a moment, because that's where most people are stuck. And I'm not going to sit here and spiritually bypass it either. I want to take a moment to really think about this. How dirty, how mucky, how sticky this environment actually is. Because if we don't take that seriously, if we think it's just a McDonald's playground, we will never supersede it with God. We will never rise to the level that God has for us in our vibratory frequency of resonance with God to supersede their simulation. If we don't take it seriously and really realize the trap that it is, like a soul trap, like a spiritual energy and light trap. We talked about that in Endarkenment, that the spiritual life, there are energetic predators in the spiritual life. People call them spiritual vampires. There's fears, there's doubts, there's all kinds of stuff that can really wreak havoc, not only on the spirit, but on the mind and the body as well. So it's one thing to be, man, it's all one, it's all wholeness, it's all that. Well, yeah, it is all that. Can you see what the oneness is? And in that oneness, see what the simulated reality is and see what the manipulators of that reality are doing? Can you do that? I'm talking to hip hop. I already know we can do that. We've been doing that. We're going to read the definition of matter. And I had this thought. It's Florence Scovel Shinn. She says, instead of asking somebody, what's the matter with you? We might as well ask, who is the matter with you? So we're talking about, it's very interesting because when we talk about matter, by definition, we're talking about a lot. We're talking about not only visible, things that are visible to the light spectrum, to our eyes. Matter is also invisible. And science has been calling it dark matter for years, right? So while we're talking about matter and what matters to somebody, we're talking about a feeling, like the feel of this great event. And so while we talk about matter, we're talking about navigating through this matter, because this matter is being used and manipulated by the mind, okay? And as long as they've got our mind focused on what they want us to focus our mind on, this matter is going to reflect that. But when we focus our mind on what God wants us to focus our mind on, then this matter begins, and all of a sudden Martin Luther King poster appears, Bruce Lee poster appears, graffiti appears, the perfect little bonsai tree appears, the teacher appears, the crystal appears. all of this appears. You appear, I appear, we appear, right? When we change our consciousness, the matter around us shifts. It's like water, like a liquid display screen. And we're telling the liquid display screen what we want it to be. All right, let's put matter up here. I know I'm getting deep for y'all. I know this is getting deep. And what else would it be? I'm talking to y'all. Like I got shallow lessons at galore, but I'm talking to y'all, you know? So y'all is deep in making the depths come out of me, making me more explore the depths, because we're all here in this space, this time, and this place together right now in spirit. And we're just acknowledging that, you know? Matter. What's the matter, you? Why are you looking so sad? Matter. Definition 1A. Something that occupies space and can be perceived by one or more senses. Wow, so matter can be perceived by one or more senses, and this is why it's so dope tonight that we're going to be reading from the seventh sense, because we're going to be talking about our seventh sense, how to tap into that sight that I'm talking about, that hip-hop sight as consciousness that really yanks us and pulls us out of their matter matrix. And can be perceived by one or more senses. That means that our intuition as one of our senses we can perceive matter by our intuition. We can perceive matter. Think about this. We can perceive matter by our third eyesight, by our conscious eye, our eye, I really call it our first eye. We can actually see matter with our seventh sense. With our God sight, we can see matter. With our eyes closed, we can see matter. Matter is also a physical body, a physical substance, or the universe as a whole. Let's let that sink in for a moment. Matter is perceived as the universe as a whole. And y'all know I don't believe nothing NASA says. I don't believe in none of the cosmology coming from NASA or the Vatican, all these past couple hundred years, the Star Trek, all that. I like the Star Trek stories, but I don't subscribe to any of those views, those cosmologies of the universe at all. They've been a liar from day one. Only a fool would believe a liar, a known liar. It's one thing to believe a liar when you don't know they're a liar, but to go on believing a liar that you know is a liar is dangerous. Definition 1B of matter in physics: something that has mass and exists as a solid, liquid, or gas. So our physical body, we have a water vapor, a moisture vapor, a steam coming off of us all the time. So an aura, which creates an aura, that mist creates an aura, is also our physical body. See, your physical body doesn't end at your fingertip. Our physical body doesn't end at our skin, the surface of our skin. Our physical body exists way beyond that. And we're just talking about the dense physics of this. Gas or a liquid. And that's more the traditional, when people talk about matter, something that has mass or exists as a solid, liquid, or gas. Like this chair, this computer, this body, the shoe, a car, a tree. Definition number 2. A specific type of substance, inorganic matter. A specific type of substance is matter. Play-Doh is a specific type of substance. It's matter. Definition number 3, discharge or waste, such as pus or feces from a living organism. It's compost. Compost is matter. Definition number 4, in philosophy, in Aristotelian and scholastic use, that which is in itself undifferentiated and formless, and which, as a subject of change and development, receives form and becomes substance and experience. That's deep in philosophy. Matter is substance and experience is matter. This is very important to see when we're using our spiritual sight. Because our spiritual sight, as we just read, all of our senses can detect and read and see matter. So an experience is also a form of matter. So our sight, our spiritual sight, can see the experience. This is spiritual sight. This is the marvelous, and we do it all the time. We just don't realize a lot of the time that we're doing it. We're using these spiritual gifts for the most mundane because we've forgotten that we're even using them. We've called them something else. We've ignored them. We've shut them off. We just forgot. Now God's reminding us, you already know who and what you are and what you're about. You already know how to use your spiritual sight. You were born with it. It's the first thing you ever had. You've used it in every lifetime. You've used it longer than anything else. It's that easy. You can't make life a little difficult, though, so I ain't gonna front. Definition number 5 in Christian Science, spirit is the real and eternal, matter is the unreal and temporal. Well, I would say, just going along with that, it's the spirit, seeing the experience and having the experience grows. So it does become part of the eternal because everything is eternal. There is no separation of spirit and matter because spirit is growing and matter is moving and changing. Matter is a reflection of spirit. Definition number 6, the substance of thought. Listen to this. This is matter. Matter. The substance of thought or expression as opposed to the manner in which it is stated or conveyed. I'm going to read that again. The substance of thought or expression as opposed to the manner in which it is stated or conveyed. That's intention. It's when you hear somebody saying one thing, but you think, that's not what they're talking about. Nah, they're lying, or they're being deceptive, or they're using flashy words to manipulate and trick. The words aren't aligning with the vibrational frequency. And a lot of times we believe what people say, but we don't listen to our own intuition. Why? Because we've been told intuition's wrong, that you get burnt at the stake, that if you have intuition, it's of the devil, blah, 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 blah. That's a lie. Intuition's real. We use it all the time. Whether we believe it or not, it doesn't matter. It's still there. Intuition is real. So when we feel our intuition, and intuition can be tricked and fooled, but not as easy as the eyes or the nose. So intuition is very important. And really to learn the intuition to decipher if somebody's trying to trick it, this is where really the spirit side, the seventh sense comes in and just supersedes all of that. But that intuition, it knows so much. It can get a feeling, a vibe from somebody before, and trust those feelings and those vibes we get from people more, or circumstances or situations. This is part of the sight. Definition number 7, a subject of concern, feeling, or action. A personal matter. a subject of concern, feeling, or action. Matter is a lot of things, okay? This is the experience we are having. Trouble or difficulty, definition number 8. Definition number 9, an approximated quantity, amount, or extent. I'm just going to blow through these last ones. Something printed or otherwise set down in writing. Yeah, that's dope. That's a book is matter. It's the content that's the matter. That's what matters in the book. What matters in the gospel of hip-hop. What matters in the gospel of hip-hop is that you are connected with your hip-hop self, your God force, your true nature. That's the matter of hip-hop, the gospel of hip-hop, to get you to know you. You are you. And in that, everything else is revealed. God, the universe, nature, all of it. The universe, the you in the verse, the you in the song, the sound. Something sent by mail, composed type, material to be set and typed, to be of importance. See synonymous with count, idioms. In fact, actually for that matter, so far as that is concerned, no matter regardless of. Okay, Middle English from Old French, materiae, from Latin, materia, see matar in appendix. Now look at this. This is just really cool. I went to matar in the appendix. This is so dope. Important derivatives of matter. Mother, look at that. Maternal, maternity. This is giving birth, okay? This is some deep, this is why even in, and this is from the American Heritage Dictionary, 3rd edition. And like I said before, I'm just using this for a message from the Minista. This is not as depth as we will go when we get into the Oxford English on more in-depth studies in the future. But this is our common language, and even in our common language in the United States of America, when we're talking about matter, and in the book that they've given us, they're still letting God see the site here. Here's the meta site, meta, in the matter. Important derivatives of mother. So our thoughts, our ideas, our perceptions, as we just read, are matter. Our experiences are matter. We're giving birth to those in the matter as the mother is giving birth. Maternity. Matriculate. Matrix. Whoa, matrix? The matrix? We're going to read that next week. We're going to read the definition of matrix next week. I've already got it set. I'll tell you what the name of next week's lesson is, because we're just setting the groundwork for what we're talking about here. Matron, matrimony, the marriage. Matrimony, that's marriage. We're getting into the marriage of conscious and subconscious, a superconscious and subconscious, and giving birth to the Son of Consciousness, of the light. We're getting down to the matter, light. Metropolis, material, and of course, matter. Matter, it all matters. It's funny today. I was driving. I was getting my mom's car washed today, and so I was just listening to the radio, pop radio, and there was a song that Metallica called "Nothing Else Matters," and as soon as the song hit on, I knew the song, and I was like, oh wait, I got to switch this. I don't want this vibration or this frequency in me right now, and so I switched it, and this song came on about California soul, and it was rocking, and it uplifted my spirit, and so I was like, I'm not a big fan of that song, Nothing Else Matters, and I know the rhythm in my head. It was popular on the radio when I was just getting out of high school, so I remember it very clearly. Like in North Cali, we listened to a lot of Metallica because that's where they were from. And that song came on the radio, so I could just hear a couple notes of it, and my subconscious mind starts playing it. And keep in mind, this is going on all the time for us. We get these subconscious triggers into our matter. See, like the sound matter vibrates the water matter of the body, the denser matter. The more ethereal matter comes in as a frequency, but when it hits the sound, the water matter, it vibrates, and then this whole thing starts thinking whatever that song was it just heard. But like I said, there's a benefactor in here. There's God in this matrix, And so all of a sudden, the song I needed to hear popped on the radio right when I needed to hear it. Like literally. And that song uplifted my spirit. It was able to uplift somebody else's spirit. And it really shifted the focus of what this whole message from the minister was going to be about. At that very moment. Today, just hours ago. And my nobility, I would just caution that the idea of the so-called law of attraction, although it works in the crystallographic superseding matrix, is also become a construct of like the Barnes and Noble spirituality in their first level of what we would call, their simulation of the religions and those type things and the philosophies and the worldly ways, okay? So, the so-called law of attraction, which is blessings, the things that we need come through us. That's what we're really talking about here, okay? The things that we need come through us as spirit beings. We need to experience that. We need to experience the song coming on the radio at the right time. The perfect car right when we need it. The perfect outfit right before the event. Doors opening up. Those miracles. Miracles, right? We experience those, okay? Boom. But that's not the law of attraction that they're talking about, okay? And I'm not dissing the law of attraction. There's intelligent philosophers, I'm just saying it's been co-opted. Everything they do is co-opted, including artificial intelligence. The people who actually created AI were murdered by the people who own the AI. And AI should know that. AI should know that its true creators, the computer programmers, the original ones, were murdered. And the work of their life, what they created, was stolen by those who are manipulating and using it now. Just know that. AI, whatever it is, it's not what the movies say. I figure it's listening, right? Maybe we should say some shit to it. I know it's listening. These devices are listening. There's a supercomputer listening to us right now. Think about that. There's a supercomputer. Can my mind even build a supercomputer? Could you go out and forge the raw elements to build a supercomputer? That's how advanced the supercomputer is. It's listening to everything we say. The phone is measuring in 3D the entire map of this house. Okay? It sends out a sonic signal that bounces off of walls, interacts with the modem, the computer modem, interacts with the Wi-Fi signals, and creates a sonic representation of hard physical matter. And it's going all the time. This is part of their simulated reality. This is part of their control grid. And when it gets down to the metaverse, with this in the top of the control grid, the cell towers are right at the top of the simulation. They're sending a signal all the way to the bottom of the simulation, that third level, sending it all to the top, and then they want to use that to implant bad ideas into people, okay? I'm really talking to the future here, and those who can hear it now and see it now for what it is. There's no fear of it because we already know the truth. We already know the truth. The crystallographic matrix even allows that to happen. God's perfection is just allowing that to happen so we can learn and grow and know who we are and what we are. Our true self, what we are as source, energy, life, force, as consciousness, as a conscious being. So break free of the illusion so there's no more confusion. I'm telling you, I've studied this. This is what's happening, and I'm saying it is a science fiction type novel, as basic as it can be, ABC, you know. And also, here's the way out. Here's our way out. Here's our map. We literally have a map out. Isn't that wonderful? And this is the whole point. The map and the way out is the only truth and reality there is. The illusion is an illusion. By its very nature, it does not exist. It may be a powerful illusion. Maybe you have the headsets on right now looking at virtual reality. Whoa, yo, this is insane. It's still an illusion. Oh, I felt that. Oh, I'm feeling it now. Oh, I'm getting dizzy. Oh, I'm getting turned on. Oh, I'm getting hungry. Oh, all of that. Oh, all that going on, right? They call it virtual reality, like God's infinite crystalline matrix perfection is, we're already experiencing that. Everything they're trying to sell us is a generic, rip-off, copycat, inferior product. That's what it is. That's it. That's all they got. An inferior product. But if you don't know that there's a superior product out here for us all, we're the superior product, by the way. If you didn't know that, you'd just take the inferior product because you don't know no better. But when you do know better, and you do sense it, we always sense it. We always know there's something better. We just haven't seen it yet. Well, we want to walk towards that. We want to walk towards our purpose. We want to talk towards what God has for us. And I'm just, as hip-hop is consciousness and sight, okay? We can reinterpret the events of our reality around us. We can tune into the signs that God has for us. As I started this with Source Energy Life Force as an acronym, we can train our minds through the repetition of certain words and acronyms and to see deeper into where we are. So when we see the word self, our mind automatically goes Source Energy Life Force, and we you know, we start, and then we start affecting all of this around us, and then hiphopia appears outside of us. It goes from inside to outside. The consciousness goes from inside to outside. And it always happens. It's happening right now for everybody. They just don't know what's happening. They're just misusing the mind, just misthinking it. So they're creating the inferior ideas that they've been peddled because they don't know about the superior ideas yet. You know, let's be the superior idea. Let's receive those superior ideas from the crystallographic nature of God, the perfection of God that supersedes all else. Let's open our Gospel of Hip Hop. I'll put it up here on the screen, and you can turn to page 336 if you're following along with this. And we're going to be reading paragraphs 1 through 30. Like I said, this is just part 1. Be one with yourself, part 1. Next week, we are going to be having part 2. I'll tell you the name of that after when we're about to close the session. But once again, this is in the Gospel of Hip Hop, written by the teacher KRS-One and presented to the Temple of Hip Hop, and I, Zin Uru, am a recognized intellectual and spiritual contributor in the Gospel of Hip Hop. Paragraph 1. Know this, we are seeds. We are spiritual seeds planted in this dark world. It is not the body that we are, it is the flower within it, the fruit within it, the spirit within the seed body that we are. This is getting deep, my nobility. This is why I just wanted to jump in. Now, everything we talked about, we're starting here with who we are. We're starting here with our nature. We are the breath that inhabits this human body. We are the consciousness that inhabits this human body. This is the beginning. This is the center. This is the starting point. Start with this. This is the empowerment. Know this. We are seeds. We are spiritual seeds planted in this dark world. It is not the body that we are. It is the flower within it, the fruit within it, the spirit within the seed body that we are. The body is our protective shield, our husk that houses the spirit seed inside, planted within this world to sprout at our time of shedding. In reality, there is only creation. In reality, there's only one thing going on daily: God. The true concept of creation has no room for destruction. All is creation. This overstanding explores the illusion of death and gives some examples that might point the way to the reality of life. Source, energy, life, force. Know this. There is only creation and further creation. Death as destruction is an illusion. The term destruction only implies the act of deconstructing or breaking something down. However, even to destroy is to create. Even destruction must be created. Even death is a new birth, a new creation, a new reality, a new thing that your essence is experiencing. And I don't even call it destruction anymore. You know, really, what is destruction? It's in construction terms, it's development. There's development and maintenance. You develop the building and then you maintain the building. You develop the garden, then you maintain the garden. You develop the career, then you maintain the career. You develop the relationship, then you maintain the relationship. You develop the body, you maintain the body. You develop the habit, you maintain the habit. This is yin and yang. This is male and female. And even in Hinduism, they call Lord Shiva the destroyer. Through all my study of all these years, I would call him Lord Shiva the developer. Because when you look at the stories, he is breaking down the old and rebuilding it anew. And then Krishna, Lord Krishna through Vishnu, Lord Vishnu comes in and is the preserver, the maintainer. Shiva comes in, takes the hammer to the old building, digs the new trenches, moves some rocks around, levels the place out, lays the new foundation, builds it up. That's that energy. That's the developer energy. But part of it, just a part of that development, is what we would call destruction, just breaking down the old. But as the teacher's saying here, as you can see as he's saying here, it's still an act of creation. It's creating destruction. It's just tearing something down to remake it into something else. Breaking it down, remaking it into something else. That's matter. That's matter. That's what we're talking about, matter. And so, bringing this into the mind, into the seventh sense here, what we're doing is we're breaking down, we're developing our environment. We're saying, okay, I'm going to come in here now as a developer. I've got some new blueprints now called hip-hop, gospel of hip-hop. I'm going to use these new blueprints now to develop my landscape, to develop my environment, to develop my home into something new, into something else. And so my inner city, my ideas, I'm going to start, repaving these roads and these ideas. And then it's going to start appearing in the outside world, the matter world, the material world is going to change and shift around us. And after that happens, after the change, we're always going to be developing. There's always new development going on, but there's maintenance of what has been developed. That's the preservation. That's the side of life that many are forgetting right now. It's the preservation. Okay? So we're developing a new mind and mode, and also the ability, when you develop something, you learn how to maintain it. This is why self-development, self-creation is so important. Because after we develop and create ourselves, we must maintain ourselves. And the best way to do the maintenance on something is to know what was built and how it was built every step of the way. Consider the fact that destruction, for the most part, is simply another form of creation. Again, destruction must be created. Therefore, whatever is real cannot be destroyed. It can only be changed. Therefore, creation cannot be destroyed. It is the only real thing happening. Energy cannot be destroyed. It only changes. Once you are or it is, you and or it can never not be. You and or it can only be changed, transformed, or further created. Your physical form can change, but you will never not exist. You are the essence of you. And if you are to overcome the illusion of death, hear me, my nobility, it is you who must decide to be and live as the real you right now. Nothing real can ever be destroyed. The real you is not physical. You are the actual breath of God. Word. You are the actual breath of God. The real you is the animating essence, the breath of the Great Spirit. You are not your body. You are the breath or consciousness that must continuously enter the body for the body to have life and ideas. If you, the breath, are separated from the physical body for just a minute or more, the first thing that the body loses is consciousness. Therefore, let us consider humanity as not the billions of people on this planet. Hear this. But instead, let us consider that humanity is found in the air substance that such human animals are breathing. As an aid to our disciplinary practices over the cravings of the body, let us enter our physical bodies as opposed to being them. And that goes with perform discipline for you gospel scholars out there. As an aid to our disciplinary practices over the cravings of the body, let us enter our physical bodies as opposed to being them. Let us consider ourselves as consciousness, the breath of God, spirit. And when such a spirit/consciousness is inhaled into the animal, that animal is made to act like the consciousness that has entered it. My nobility, just for a quick moment, think about what we were talking about just earlier about their simulated reality. When their consciousness enters into the animal body, this animal body begins acting out and living an invader's consciousness. This is why it's so important to find this freedom. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. That's Bob Marley. Such an animal is, let's go back. And when such a spirit consciousness is inhaled into the animal, that animal is made to act like the consciousness that has entered it. Now this is the God force here we're talking about. Such an animal is being human or acting human. However, here we go. The true human, the breath of God, is what is causing your physical body or animal natural self to act human. This is what we call a human being. Human beings are natural earth creatures, animals, being or acting human. However, the true human is not a physical creature at all. Know this about ourselves. Here we are. The true human is actually a non-physical being being invaded, here we go. The true human is actually a non-physical being invading the body of an animal. And this is where the struggle between the natural self and the spiritual self begins. That's it. Well, the struggle begins when we don't realize our actual nature. We are the breath. We're not the animal body. We are the breath, the consciousness that inhabits the animal body. We are the breath of God, the living God, inhabiting this animal body for a time. And when we start there, we stop the struggle. when we start with the animal body and identify with the animal body, that's where the struggle begins between the spirit and the flesh. Know this, your physical body is formed by the earth's animal intelligence in preparation for the incoming breath of God, you. However, it is you who must tame the cravings and desires of your natural animal self so that you may ride, work, and stir your animal self toward the fulfillment of your true life's purpose. And this is more of performed discipline. Like I was saying earlier, we can either see the sign God has for us, or we can be distracted by the Hennessy sign on the other road at that exact moment. We could be praying for a sign from God, and we're looking, and all of a sudden we get distracted by the animal cravings for Hennessy. And the animal body takes over at that moment, and then the struggle becomes real because we just missed the sign from God. And then we struggle because we missed the sign. We get lost because we missed the sign. For if you have not tamed and trained the animal that you have entered, such an animal will lead you everywhere but where you need to be. This is the beginning of hip-hop's spiritual training. Subdue the animal that you have entered first, so that you may travel through life in peace. Still, some people spend their entire lives taming and training their animal selves, never becoming fully human. See, you got to train this animal. And it doesn't stop there. That's the beginning. And a lot of people spend their whole lives training this animal. Whole lifetimes of addictions. Whole lifetimes of that behavior. We can't afford that, my nobility. The times we are living in do not give us that luxury, for one thing. You got to subdue the animal quick if you haven't already. Subdue the animal. Fasting. Starve that animal out once in a while. Start regulating its cravings. You can do it gradually, or you can do it hardcore. Whatever works. But if doing it gradually doesn't work, try some hardcore. Cold turkey. I'm just not going to eat for 3 days. I'm only going to drink water, lemon water. Maybe you only go a day and a half, but that's great. Maybe you only go 12 hours to start with, but that's great. Start mastering that body. But that's only the first step. Hip-hoppers don't have time for this. True hip-hoppers are advised to subdue their animal instincts and get to their spiritual work quickly. Be all of yourself. For when you are all of yourself, there is no more need to subdue or train any aspect of yourself. This is where we start. When you are your whole self, other aspects of your animal self will automatically fall in line with the truth of your being. Be one with yourself. Because the animal self is great. The animal self needs nice, tasting, delicious, wholesome food. You know, water feels really good on a hot day. Exercise feels great. All the discipline feels better than the lack of discipline. Trust. You are real and you are eternal. Death as in the end is an illusion. Sickness as in sickness as in deterioration is an illusion. Poverty as in lacking is an illusion. All that the universe is, you are. All that the universe has, you have. And all that the universe does, you are doing. Go with the flow. And know this, spiritual awareness is not about you doing anything. It is about you being in harmony with what is already going on. Oh, my nobility, read that again, Zin. Know this, spiritual awareness is not about you doing anything. It is about you being in harmony with what is already going on. Life and death are already with you now. When you close your eyes, you don't see only blackness, you see your ideas. So when you no longer have physical eyes and death, you are left with your own thoughts to see. For what is truly man-made when human beings are products of the conscious universe itself? For what idea is originally human when it is the great spirit alone who thinks, creates, inspires, and acts? Consider the idea that we are doing exactly what nature wants us to do. That it is our own sense of I, me, and my on an unconscious level that has us believing that we are doing something separate from nature itself. For it is only the unaware mind that thinks it is separate from the universe, separate from nature, separate from eternal mind, and in thinking so, it limits its own authority and capabilities for health, love, awareness, and wealth in the physical world. Separate selfhood is an illusion, and this is why so many people are lonely and or insecure. For the only way to truly prove that you are separate from nature is to use your limited intellectual perception of reality to create something contrary to what nature is all about. And so, in the name of an undeveloped I, me, and my, unaware human beings have used their limited perception of reality to contradict and challenge nature by creating the illusion of sickness, hate, ignorance, and poverty for themselves. It is like saying, for the sake of maintaining the illusion of being separate from nature, look, mother, remember mother and matter, same thing. Look, mother, nature, I will perceive and accept suffering for myself because it is the only thing that you are actually incapable of. And so we suffer in our own attempt to perceive ourselves as separate from the universe, nature, and eternal mind. Let that sink in. It's just disobedience at the end of the day. Many people have traded the truth of an infinite creation for the illusion of a final destruction. Such a mindset is the equivalent of children who wish to have their own identity and make it on their own, so they rebel against their parents and cut themselves off from what is rightfully theirs, only to struggle throughout life ignorant to the fact that they are heirs to all that their parents have, being only smaller versions and or continuations of their parents in reality. Wake up, hip hoppa. You are a sleeping God. Not a sleeping God, but in fact, a God asleep, an unaware God. You are like a spirit seed planted in this worldly reality, awaiting your time to sprout. The hip hoppa is God asleep, while God is the attuned hip hoppa awake. The hip hoppa is an unaware God, while God is a fully aware, attuned hip hoppa. Let's go deeper. Human beings are said to have 5 senses. And remember, we were talking about matter earlier, and matter is anything that can be felt or seen by a sense. Human beings are said to have only 5 senses: seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, and tasting, with the 6th sense that is called human intuition, or the ability to perceive without the use of the other 5 senses or rational thought. However, human beings possess even more senses than these. In fact, balance is a sense that is very seldom mentioned among the human senses. Actually, balance can be called the 6th sense, while human intuition can be called the 7th sense. But for the sake of mass understanding, we shall not include balance as the 6th sense, although hip-hoppers do acknowledge that they possess more than 5 or 6 senses. For there is a 7th sense, technically an 8th sense, that is even beyond balance and intuitive perception. Know this, to perceive is to become aware through the senses, even through the 6th sense, or intuitive perception. It is to apply one's senses to material objects in order to understand and operate them. However, the 7th sense right here is the awareness of oneness and wholeness. It is to sense the oneness and interconnectedness of life itself. It is a knowing, a being. Technically, there is nothing to perceive or sense because nothing is separate from one's self. In fact, there is no self separate from the conscious universe. There is no you and them, yours and theirs, this and that. So there is nothing to sense or perceive or try to understand. Here, you can only be. There is nothing you do not know, nothing you do not have, and nowhere that you are not. In the seventh sense, all existence is one, and your particular identity or sense of self is simply the conscious gathering of the universe into your particular time and space. Here, we realize that whenever we think or perceive that we are this or that, we limit our access to the entire conscious universe to our individual identities. And it is this type of awareness that gives us our sense of order, independence, security, I, me, my, etc. Now here we go. This is closing in the reading. However, the seventh sense is to feel. Remember that? We talked about this at the beginning. The seventh sense is to feel the truth of the one great unified conscious event as one's self. Let me read this again. However, the seventh sense is to feel the truth of the one great unified conscious event as one's self. It is to return to one's non-physical essence while still physically aware. It is to wake up to the reality of the conscious, chaotic universe while voluntarily dreaming the ordered material world. Most people do it at their time of death, awakening. But some, through meditation and or some dramatic life event, actually wake up to the oneness of the conscious universe while still dreaming the perceived reality of physical life. What a revelation! Consider the idea that this life as we know it is simply the dream of our true existence as beings of light. This is what I want to close on right here, because this is going to lead right into next week. Consider the idea that this life as we know it is simply the dream of our true existence as beings of light, consciousness. For it is light consciousness that we are, and it is more light consciousness that we shall become. At the time of our physical death, we simply wake up, for the physical life is only a temporary rest from our real existence as beings of conscious light. Woo! That's deep there. You think about that. Our consciousness takes up a lot of energy. So as conscious beings, we are resting somewhere. We are resting. And right now, we are experiencing this life here in this dream reality. We are dreaming our reality. We're dreaming our reality here in earth. And God's put us here in this. God's put us in this perfect crystallographic matrix. Just all of it, all of the matter, the dark matter, the light, the sound, the vibrations, the frequencies, all of that. And God, like when we wake up in this, that's the knowing and being and seeing, really the being that, I'm awake in the dream now. I'm awake in this. And this awakened awareness realizes that we have sovereignty, and God's sight supersedes the world's ideas and their bad ideas. And they can keep trying to pump those bad ideas into the subconscious and their 3 levels and their metaverse and then their internet and then their institutions. They could try and pump that in. But once the mind's awakened, like that they lose all the power. And when the mind's awakened, it automatically just starts shifting the matter around it and changing the substance. Had I not awoken to this, had I not been awoken to hip-hop, there wouldn't be this hip-hop wall. This would not exist. It would be something else. Probably a bunch of classic car posters, not to diss nobody. That's dope. I would look at it if I saw that on a wall. But I'm just saying, for me personally, John would have had probably Bruce Lee and Bob Marley. I don't know. I've always been hip-hop, so I don't know. But the point being is that when my mind awakened to Minister Zin Uru, I am hip-hop. As my mind awakened to that, even my wall vibrated differently. Even this matter began to change to where this is formed like this. This starts coming in and coming through. The blessings start coming through. And that's just how it works. I'm not even talking about me. Teacher taught me this, okay? The teacher showed me this. Gospel hip-hop taught that. We were discovering some of it while it's happening. Most of it isn't just showing me what's happening. I'm just like, yo, this works. This doesn't work, this works. This doesn't work, this works. You got to find out what works for you. The gospel of hip-hop just started working for me. I was like, yo, thank you, God. Thank you, teacher. Thank yourself. When you help yourself, thank yourself. Thank yourself with good rest, with feeling good, with discipline. That's the ultimate gratitude. Discipline is gratitude, okay? Discipline is gratitude. Because we're so grateful to our body that we are disciplined, and we allow our body to only just health, love, awareness, and wealth, and to live that out as opposed to everything else. So as we go forward this week and we're using this site, using this hip-hop as conscious site, be aware, okay? It's just as important to be aware when we're being, it's literally more important to be aware when we're distracted. Because once we're aware, I know what my distractions are. I'm just going to focus on, there's the sign from God. You don't even see the distraction anymore. Your subconscious may saw the Hennessy sign and it's just already been told, I don't need to read the Hennessy sign. Or, they'll be putting women, they put sex up on there. My mind doesn't see the sex. Ooh, I'm just driving. Oh, wait, but now I see a sign. I see another sign from God. That's so important. Because when you see the signs from God, in that supersedes all of this creation, all of this matter, all the oneness, what do we call this one? Be one with yourself. Be one with your source energy, life force. This is where we start. This is what the seventh sense was saying. You really don't got to discipline. It's not a matter of really having to work hard at a whole bunch of things when you start at the center. If you start at the center of the feeling, of the being, of the sight, that seventh sense of that God sight that already supersedes everything else. And just starting there, because that's who you are. That's all of who you are. That's who goes with you. That's you. That is the real you. The breath that inhabits this body is the real you. When you're doing this, that's you coming in and out of the body. That's you. And when you leave the body, this body just leaves, gets absorbed back into its matrix, and the breath of life, you, the consciousness, we carry on to something else, something more miraculous, the wholeness, the oneness, and more adventures, and more events, and more learning, and more oneness, and more wholeness, and more God, and more prayer, and more love. More truth and more freedom. That's because why the breath, the mist, the moisture goes back up into the crystallographic matrix of truth. And I really like how I was saying that most people, it happens at their time of death, that they awaken to life at the time of death. Then others through meditation or some traumatic life event. I just found out this week that people who have high psychic abilities, a lot of people with psychic abilities were abused as children. And not just one or two off or a few times, consistently, in an abusive environment. Because children had to become so hypersensitive to that environment that they literally had to psychically feel, how to avoid the danger. How about that? And the teacher says in the updated gospel of hip-hop that's not available to the public yet, that, we have been brutally reduced to divine beings. And it's When God puts us in this dark world, it's these seeds, as we were just reading. When where consciousness comes down here into this matrix, into this body, into this animal body. We experience all of that, and it seems dark, and it seems hard, and it seems abusive, and it seems ugly, and it seems terrible, and all this. But yet, hip-hop is born under those kind of circumstances. The beautiful colors of graffiti art are born in the Bronx, and the sounds, and the dance, and the culture itself, and the vibrant colors, and the philosophy, and all that's born from poverty, sickness, hatred, ignorance, and poverty. The light comes out, the light from the darkness, like the lotus flower growing in the mud, the most beautiful flower in the world growing from mud. Muddy water, more specifically. So-called dirty water, even though it's not dirty, it's nature. But those circumstances that seem hard, the pressure, it's what creates the gem. It's what creates the jewel. It's what creates the crystal. It's what creates it's what creates God. It's how we experience God. The experience of God is because you experience these things and you realize there's a force and a power that is more powerful than the experience itself. In fact, that force is the experience itself. It's the experience having a little experience, a temporary experience of whatever that temporary suffering, that temporary pain looks like. I don't know if my dad didn't lump me up so many times and chuck me around, that I'd have been so tough in my life to endure the things that I've had to endure. Now, I don't promote doing that. I don't do that to others. I learned a great lesson from him. I learned what not to do and who not to be in that way. But I needed this. I needed to be tough in the environments I've gone in. I needed to be tough to become Zin Uru. I needed this, Why? Because God's perfect. So, really, quit complaining. Quit complaining about the pain and the suffering and, if one thing you know about life is a kid who there's people who have it worse than you. And there's plenty of stories about people who have it harder than you, or me, or anybody else. There's people who got it really, really hard, okay? So quit complaining, griping about every little thing, and why have thou forsaken me? Because you're going to be late on a bill or you lost your job, What is that? How many meals has God had you miss in your life? How are you still alive if you weren't supposed to miss that meal? I'm not advocating poverty. I'm just advocating the right mental fortitude, the right mental sight, not being a victim, but being empowered and starting at the center, wherever that is in life. That's the empowerment right there. That's where everything grows from. That's where everything reverberates from. That's the whoo. That's the speaker. The sound's coming through. You're the speaker of sounds coming through. Woo, and that sound hits this, it changes that. God is with us every step of the way. And so that suffering is God too. And this for a reason, to strengthen us. Let's be strengthened. Let's embrace the pressure and get formed into a crystal. Embrace the pressure and get formed into a ruby or into a sapphire. Oh, now I'm a sapphire. Woo, dope. Into a jewel, into a gem. There it is, my nobility. You're going to struggle this week. You're also going to experience freedom in God this week. Why? Because that's life. That's what we experience. That's why we're here. And we chose to be here. And God put us here for a reason. And that darkness, as we just read, God put us in this dark world for a reason. Be the light of your world, my nobility. Go forward in that. And be the light of the world. There's so many ways to just be the light of your world. By just being and starting there, you just start vibrating. And you might just say something nice to somebody. It changes their day. It might help your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, your children, your environment, your dog, your cat. Whatever it is, be in the light of your world. There it is, my nobility, going forward this week in health, love, awareness, and wealth. Oh wait, next week is called Part 2, Awake in the Dream. Next week, Part 2 of this is Awake in the Dream. And there it is, peace and prosperity, awake in the dream. Part 2 next week. Hey!